It's been a season of laptop reviews for me lately, with each company offering different approaches and styles to their various configurations. You have ASUS, who has decided to go all out and water cool a dang laptop. You have MSI, who works really hard to provide the best overall experience in a notebook, and Acer, who threw all thoughts of portability out the window and decided to provide a tank instead of a travel-ready device. The Aorus X7, up for review today, provides another decidedly different approach that has a lot to appreciate, even if some of it is less than stellarly implemented. But let's dive in. The display on the Aorus X7 is one of the most impressive things about this notebook. It's a 17.3-inch 1080p IPS panel that supports a 75Hz refresh rate as well as G-Sync. Basically, everything about this panel was perfect. There was no backlight bleed, the extra 15Hz is a great addition over standard gaming laptop displays, and the buttery smooth, tearing-free experience of a G-Sync panel on a notebook makes it less necessary to need a secondary monitor even if you primarily operate your laptop in a fixed location. Powering that extreme display is a dual GTX 970M GPU setup with each card boasting 3GB of VRAM. While SLI is a great idea for a notebook, there were some issues with it that I'll get back to later. For the CPU, it's powered by the Intel Core i7-5850HQ, which boasts a higher boost clock over the 5700HQ by 100 MHz, while still having the same base clock of 2.7 GHz. On the RAM front, you have 32GB of DDR3 1866 in 4 SODIMM slots, a 512GB SSD RAID configuration with read speeds of nearly 1 GB per second and write speeds just under 900 MB per second. There's a 1TB 7200 RPM storage drive, and then Intel 7260 AC Wi-Fi featuring Bluetooth 4.1 and transfer speeds of up to 867 megabits per second. Bringing those specs to performance numbers, at maximum detail settings, the SLI 970M GPUs can scream through most games, providing enough headroom for the 75Hz panel. But as is the downfall in all SLI setups, not every game will support this functionality and will sometimes rely on only the performance of one GPU. Regardless, the performance numbers on the Aorus are good enough for any 1080p gaming you want to do in AAA titles. Covering the rest of the features of the notebook, it has a 30-key rollover keyboard which sports a white backlight, which even at its maximum brightness didn't really pop, but it was enough to see each key in a dark environment. The keys themselves were mushy and easy to bottom out, and I didn't really enjoy typing on this notebook, as I'm one to be overly aggressive with my typing patterns, but that's merely personal preference. The Aorus X7 also comes with 5 programmable macro keys, which can be easily programmed in the macro engine software with up to 5 different profiles. The touchpad is a smooth surface with the Aorus logo emblazoned on it. While there are no dedicated left and right click buttons, there is a texture area that serves to indicate which part of the touchpad is for clicking, which is a nice touch. The 720p 30fps webcam provides decent enough video recording, and the microphone setup was stellar for a gaming notebook. Microphone records, I want to see how the microphone records. Microphone records. Battery life on the X7 came to about 1 hour and 30 minutes on the PC Mark 8 battery life test with the notebook set to high performance mode. The audio setup is enjoyable at all volume settings, with it being clear in the mids and highs, but the notebook does lack any noticeable bass punch in the low end. The included Command Center software is useful, with it combining nearly everything you want to adjust on the notebook, including fan profiles, keyboard backlight, and even the display's color temperature, all wrapped up into a single location. My only gripe with it is that it would refuse to orient itself behind other programs, and you would have to exit out of the application to get it to not interfere with other windows when you have it open. For I/O, you get a Kensington lock, Gigabit Ethernet port, VGA out, USB 3, and audio ports on the left. On the right, you'll find the mini DisplayPort out, HDMI out, 2 more USB 3 ports, and an SD card reader. And then on the rear, there's the power in and dual USB 2 ports. Now, you likely noticed from the I/O that one of the main features of the Aorus is its incredibly thin frame. Being not much larger than my Moto X smartphone, it comes in at only 25.4mm thick and weighs in at 3.2 kilograms, which is frankly outstanding considering all the hardware that has been packed into the notebook. The X7 also includes the nifty one-finger hinged lift design for the panel. However, that thin frame unfortunately doesn't come without compromises to the cooling performance of the notebook. The CPU hit its thermal limit point of 96 degrees nearly all the time, and the GPUs each hit their limits of roughly 86 degrees as well during any gaming session. This is also with a custom fan profile of 100% fan speed for the Aorus. These high temperatures did indeed thermal throttle the GPUs to below the 924 MHz base clock by 12%. The CPU was fine, still able to maintain its base clock, but without the additional turbo clock. When I put the Aorus on my 280mm cooling test bench, the temperatures were still just as high, but it was able to maintain a core clock of 961 MHz, or a 4% boost clock. If you're thinking of getting this notebook, I would highly recommend a cooling pad, as it struggles to keep cool on its own, limiting its own performance. Also, be wary of where you place your notebook while gaming, as the side exhaust vents brought my desk up to a toasty 50 degrees Celsius, which could be potentially devastating to any plants that you may game next to. However, the Aorus does a great job of making sure that the heat doesn't reach the keyboard, with most of the thermal expulsion taking place in the gap above the keyboard. Conclusion time. The Aorus X7 is frankly impressive. Sure, at this point, this model boasts outdated specs with its lack of a Skylake processor and Pascal GPUs, but even still, I think the idea of what the Aorus X7 promotes is an exceptional one. The fantastic 75Hz G-Sync IPS panel is stellar, the performance is top of the line with the most recent version of the X7 using an overclockable 6820HK CPU, and it all comes in a rather thin form factor. Yes, it has the aforementioned detailed thermal issues, which likely would be better on the lower TDP Skylake and Pascal chips, but even with that, the Aorus X7 does so many things right. And the heat output issues could likely be improved by replacing the thermal compound under the heat sinks with something a bit more robust and fresh. At this point, this model of the Aorus X7 is unrecommendable just due to recent releases of newer hardware. But if the refresh models are anything like this one, then it's absolutely a notebook I would love to have as my main portable gaming station, especially if they've sorted out the heat issues. And with that conclusion, I'd like to thank Gigabyte South Africa for sending the Aorus X7 over for review. Like this video if you found it helpful at all, dislike it if you disagree with me or my conclusions. Let me know down in the comments if a thin and portable notebook like the X7 is something that you prefer, or you'd rather go with something a bit more robust. You could subscribe to stay up to date on all of my tech-related content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Cheers.